Hey PTA Global Community, this is Scott Hopson. I am here at my gym. I'm about to get my movement on for the day in about 10 minutes. So I've got just enough time to answer 2 Q&As that's coming from our community globally this week. All right, number 1. The question is, what are the optimal loading parameters for hypertrophic training? This is a very commonly asked question, especially in our industry. And what I would like to elicit over the next 3 to 4 minutes is that we typically in our industry are only concerned or put our energy onto one kind of hypertrophic training, when in fact there are actually 2. There is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, there is myofibrillar hypertrophy. On my left, sarcoplasmic, and all that word means is it's the gel-like fluid that surrounds the muscle fiber, stacked with glycosomes, myoglobin, mitochondria, and a whole host of other minerals, enzymes, etc. That kind of hypertrophy makes up about 30% of your growth potential. Now that's really important, 30%, okay? The kind of loading that hypertrophy likes is this. It likes about 8 to 15 repetitions, maybe up to 20 at the high end, but usually 8 to 15. It likes to do repeated bouts. It likes a work-rest ratio of about 1 to 1, maybe 1 to 1.5. And it likes a moderate to high volume of work. In other words, you're going to do many, many sets. Okay? When you do that, you're training A, anaerobically, B, dominating the glycolytic lactic acid energy systems, and C, you're really stressing type 2A muscle fibers. Okay? This is very commonly seen in our industry, and it kind of comes from the plethora of bodybuilding information that we've drawn off of. But bear in mind, it takes up about 30% of your growth potential. Okay, let's flip over to the right side, myofibrillar. This has been typically called the functional hypertrophy. And what we mean by that is concerned with the actin and myosin. In other words, the functional unit of the sarcolemma. All right, that little thing that actually contracts within the sarcomere itself. This makes up 75% of our growth potential. 75%. So already you should be thinking, well, where would, if I had to go for my bang for buck, where would it be, right? Now, if you train for myofibrillar hypertrophy, this is what this looks like. It likes a low repetition, high intensity stimulus. In other words, 1 to 6 reps, 85 to 100% of your 1 RM. At this point, you probably think, well, not everyone's ready for that or even needs it, which is true. It's training anaerobically for maybe 1 to 12 or 15 seconds. The work to rest ratios are hugely different. If you want a full metabolic recovery from near maximal loads, it's going to take about 2 to 3 minutes. If you need a full neurological recovery, it's going to take 3 to 5 minutes. So again, depending on what your goal is and who your client is, you're going to have to manipulate that differently. It also likes repeated bouts, but only for about a moderate volume of work. It doesn't like a higher volume of work. So as you compare those 2 charts there, a couple of things should jump out. 1, you need both at some stage. You cannot maximally or optimally maximize your hypertrophic gain if you're only doing one versus the other. The difference would be if you're looking at the typical bodybuilder versus the power lifter or Olympic lifter. You're going to see how these 2 kinds of predominant training show up as different kinds of muscle mass, right? They're both anaerobic. They're both essentially intervals. You're doing a work to rest. You just manipulate the variables differently. Okay? Now, the thing I'd like to add in here, though, is the energy systems you're using. If you're training anaerobically in an interval-type manner, one's near maximal with full recovery, one's sub-maximal with less recovery, guess what? On your, quote, cardio days, what we call our energy system development days, your programming has to be congruent with that. Okay? So whatever you're doing for your energy system development, let's say you're running on a treadmill, you're using a slide board, you're swimming, whatever it is, if your cardio is to go do a 30-45-minute steady-state, low-intensity aerobic workout 3 times a week, the chances of stacking on muscle mass are slim to none. Okay? So if you're in a phase of training where your primary goal is hypertrophy, A, you're going to need both, which one you use more than the other is down to the client and their goal, but B, your energy system development work needs to be congruent with that. Anyway, hope that helps. I'll be on to question 2 very shortly.